The most exhausting part of anxious attachment is not only wanting reassurance, it is knowing that if you ask for reassurance the wrong way, you might end up feeling smaller than you felt before you asked. So you do not just ask. You explain. You soften. You apologize before you even say the need. You add context. You add disclaimers. You say, I know you are busy. I know this is probably annoying. I know I am overthinking. I know you did not do anything wrong. I just wanted to say, I am sorry if this sounds dramatic. You try to make the need so gentle that it cannot be rejected. You try to make the question so reasonable that they cannot call it too much. You try to make yourself so understanding that they cannot accuse you of being demanding. But by the time you finish, the original need has disappeared under a pile of self-protection. And the brutal truth is this: over-explaining is not communication. It is fear wearing a polite voice. It is the nervous system trying to ask for safety while also trying to make sure nobody gets angry, leaves, shuts down, misunderstands, judges you, or uses your need against you. That is why anxious people do it. Not because they love long messages, not because they want drama, not because they enjoy turning one sentence into 5 paragraphs. They do it because somewhere in the body, a simple ask does not feel safe. A simple ask feels exposed. A simple ask feels like handing someone a clean, sharp truth and waiting to see if they will hold it with care or punish you for having it. So the anxious system pads the truth. It wraps the question in explanations. It tries to control the reaction before the reaction even happens. And that is the trap. The more you explain, the less powerful the ask becomes. The more you defend your need, the more it starts sounding like a crime. The more you try to prove you are not too much, the more you train the other person to hear your need as something you yourself are ashamed of. If this kind of clarity helps your nervous system settle, subscribe. PsychBond is a daily decoder for psychology, relationships, and avoidant and anxious attachment patterns, so you stop guessing. Now, let's go deep into why asking once feels so hard. Because the real issue is not wording. The real issue is the fear underneath the wording. Anxious attachment often comes from a nervous system that learned love is not always stable. Care may come, then disappear. Warmth may be present, then suddenly change. Someone may be close, then emotionally unavailable. Someone may say they care, but their behavior may make you feel like you have to fight for a place in their attention. So the anxious system becomes very alert to tiny shifts. A shorter reply can feel like danger. A change in tone can feel like distance. A delay can feel like rejection starting. Silence does not feel neutral. Silence feels like a room where the brain starts filling in the worst possible story. And once that alarm turns on, the need to ask becomes urgent. But the fear of asking is also urgent. That is what creates the spiral. One part of you wants to say, "Hey, I felt a little disconnected after that, and I need clarity." Another part of you says, "Do not say that. You will sound needy. You will push them away. They will think you are too sensitive. They will regret being close to you. They will feel trapped. They will punish you with distance." So, instead of one clean sentence, the message becomes a negotiation with fear. You are not only talking to them, you are talking to every old moment where your needs were too much for someone. You were talking to every time you asked for care and got irritation. Every time you were vulnerable and someone got cold. Every time you told the truth and the other person made you feel dramatic. Every time you reached for closeness and felt the other person pull back. That history enters the message. This is also why anxious overexplaining often gets worse with avoidant people. An avoidant person may respond to emotion with distance, vagueness, silence, defensiveness, or a sudden need for space. Even if they are not trying to be cruel, their system often treats emotional demand as pressure. So the anxious person senses that and tries to make the need smaller, softer, less threatening. You try to ask in a way that will not activate their distance. You try to make the need so perfectly shaped that they can receive it. But now, you are not just asking for clarity. You are managing their nervous system. You are trying to protect them from your need, so they will not abandon you for having it. That is why this dynamic becomes so exhausting. The anxious person becomes responsible for the question and the answer, for the need and the other person's reaction to the need, for the truth and how gently the truth lands, for their own pain and the other person's comfort. And slowly, your voice becomes crowded. You do not say, "I need clarity." You say, "I know this is probably just me overthinking, and I am sorry if this sounds intense, and I completely understand if you are busy, and I do not want to pressure you. But I just felt a little weird and I wanted to check in. But no rush, and please do not feel like you have to respond right away." Notice what happened. The need is buried. The other person has been given 10 exits before they even answered. And the anxious person feels exposed anyway, because overexplaining does not actually remove vulnerability. It only makes vulnerability look ashamed. This is why asking once is so powerful. Asking once does not mean being cold. It does not mean being rude. It does not mean demanding an answer with no softness. It means your truth is allowed to stand without a courtroom defense. It means you do not have to prove your need is acceptable before you express it. It means you can be kind without shrinking. You can be calm without apologizing for existing. You can be clear without turning your need into a confession. The reason this is hard is because anxious attachment often confuses clarity with danger. A clear ask feels like too much because it cannot hide. A clear ask says, "This is what I need to know." A clear ask gives the other person a chance to respond to the actual thing. And that is terrifying, because if they do not respond well, you cannot blame the wording anymore. You cannot say, "Maybe if I had explained it better, maybe if I had been softer, maybe if I had sent one more paragraph." A clean ask reveals something you may not want to see. Whether this person can meet you with basic care when you are not performing emotional gymnastics. That is why the anxious system prefers overexplaining. Overexplaining creates the illusion of control. It makes you feel like if you say everything exactly right, you can prevent abandonment. If you include enough context, they will not misunderstand. If you show enough empathy, they will not feel attacked. If you apologize enough, they will not think you are demanding. If you say no pressure enough, they will not feel pressure. But the painful truth is that the right person does not need you to disappear inside the ask in order to hear you. And the wrong dynamic will still find a way to make your need feel heavy, even if you wrap it in silk. That is where the lived experience angle matters, because anyone who has lived anxious attachment knows the strange humiliation after sending a long message. You may feel relief for 3 seconds, then shame. You reread it. You wonder if it was too much. You notice where you sounded needy. You imagine their face while reading it. You imagine them sighing. You imagine them showing it to someone. You imagine them thinking, "Here we go again." Then you start wanting to send another message to fix the first message. And that second message is usually not communication either. It is panic trying to clean up panic. That is how one need turns into a whole performance. The original pain might have been simple. I felt distant from you, and I wanted reassurance. But the anxious system turns it into a legal case because it is trying to avoid rejection. This is why the title says, "Ask once." Not because you only deserve one chance to speak, not because your feelings should be tiny, but because asking once protects your dignity and gives you cleaner information. When you ask once, clearly and calmly, the other person's response tells you much more. If they care, they can engage. If they are confused, they can ask. If they need time, they can say that without erasing you. If they are avoidant, they may still feel discomfort, but now the pattern becomes visible without you burying it under 10 explanations. If they punish a reasonable ask, that matters. If they disappear after a simple question, that matters. If they make you feel guilty for needing basic clarity, that matters. Overexplaining often delays that truth because it gives the other person too much room to focus on your delivery instead of their response. They can say, "That was a lot." They can say, "I feel pressured." They can say, "You are overthinking." They can make the length of the message the issue instead of the thing you were asking about. A clean ask removes some of that noise. It says, "Here is the point. Now let's see what you do with it." This is not about becoming perfect. It is about making the truth easier to see. There is a deeper reason anxious people overexplain, and it has to do with emotional self-distrust. When your nervous system has been activated for a long time, you may stop trusting your own interpretation. You feel hurt, then immediately question whether you are allowed to feel hurt. You notice distance, then tell yourself maybe you are being dramatic. You want clarity, then shame yourself for needing clarity. This inner conflict leaks into the ask. Instead of saying, "I felt disconnected after that conversation, can we talk about it?" you start saying, "I do not know if this makes sense, and maybe I am just being sensitive, and maybe it is nothing, and I'm sorry, I just feel weird." That is why you have to understand what overexplaining communicates underneath the words. It often says, "I have a need, but I'm scared my need is not legitimate. I have a question, but I'm afraid your answer will hurt me. I want closeness, but I'm afraid asking for it will make me lose you. I am trying to be easy to love by being easy to dismiss." That last line is the painful one. Many anxious people overexplain because they are trying to be easy to love. They think if they are gentle enough, patient enough, self-aware enough, careful enough, the other person will finally feel safe enough to show up. But what often happens is the opposite. You become easier to dismiss because you keep lowering the weight of your own need. You keep saying, "No pressure," when the truth is, there is pressure because relationships do have emotional responsibility. You keep saying, "No rush," when the truth is, endless delay hurts you. You keep saying, "Maybe it is just me," when the truth is, their inconsistency is affecting you. You keep saying, "Sorry," when the truth is, you are asking for a normal human conversation. This is why anxious attachment can make people sound less certain than they actually are. Deep down, you often do know what you need. You know when something feels off. You know when the energy changed. You know when someone's behavior does not match the closeness they created. But because you are afraid of losing the connection, you present your knowing as a question mark. You make your reality negotiable. You hope that if you are careful enough, they will choose to validate it. But asking once means you stop auditioning for permission to have a feeling. You let the sentence stand. Not aggressively, not dramatically, just clearly. Here is what I noticed. Here is what I need. Can you answer this? The power of that kind of ask is that it respects both people. It respects you because you are not betraying yourself in the wording. It respects them because you are not flooding them with a panic essay and expecting them to untangle the emotional thread. You are giving the relationship one clean opportunity to meet the truth. That is why a case simulation helps here. Imagine someone named Emma dating someone named Ryan. Ryan has been warm for a few weeks. He texts consistently, opens up, says he feels comfortable with her, makes plans, and lets the connection feel real. Emma finally relaxes. She stops bracing. She starts trusting the rhythm. Then, after a close night, Ryan becomes distant. His replies get shorter. He stops initiating. He says he has been busy, but something feels different. Emma feels the alarm in her body. The anxious part wants to send a long message. It wants to say, "Hey, I know you are busy and I am probably overthinking, but I just feel like maybe something shifted and I do not want to make a big deal out of it, and I am sorry if this feels like pressure, and I totally understand if you need space, but I just wanted to check because I care and I do not want things to be weird, and you do not have to respond now." That message is understandable. It is not crazy. It is the message of someone trying not to be abandoned. But it also gives away too much dignity. It apologizes for noticing. It softens the truth until the truth becomes almost invisible. It makes Ryan's comfort more important than Emma's clarity. Now imagine Emma asks once instead. She says, "I noticed things felt different after we got closer, and I want to understand where you are. Are you still interested in continuing this with consistency?" That is it. No self-insult, no apology for having eyes, no emotional essay, no accusation, just the truth. This kind of sentence is scary because it gives Ryan nowhere to hide behind confusion. He can answer. He can avoid. He can deflect. He can be honest. But whatever he does, Emma learns something. If he says, "Yes, I am interested. I just got overwhelmed and I should have communicated better," that gives her information. If he says, "I do not know. I feel pressured," that gives her information. If he disappears, that gives her information. If he turns it around and makes her feel needy for asking a basic question, that gives her information. The point is not that asking once guarantees the answer you want. It does something more important. It stops you from destroying yourself to get an answer from someone who may not want to give one. This is where the audience needs the why. Because anxious people often think the goal is to get the perfect response. But the deeper goal is to stop using overexplaining as a way to avoid seeing reality. Overexplaining can keep hope alive because it lets you believe the issue is still your delivery. Maybe they would have responded if I had said it better. Maybe they pulled away because I sounded too intense. Maybe I need to clarify. Maybe I need to send one more message so they understand my heart. But sometimes they already understand enough. Sometimes the problem is not that they do not understand. Sometimes the problem is that understanding would require them to respond with more maturity than they have. That is a very hard truth. A person can understand your need and still not want to meet it. A person can know they hurt you and still avoid the conversation. A person can care about you and still choose the comfort of distance over the discomfort of accountability. That is why over-explaining does not save you. It just keeps you working harder inside a pattern that may require the other person to work too. Asking once makes the power dynamic cleaner. It puts the need on the table and then watches what happens. This is why the best anxious attachment growth is not about sounding less needy. It is about no longer treating your need like something that must be disguised before it is allowed into the room. There is a huge difference between regulation and self-erasure. Regulation means you pause before speaking. You choose clear words. Self-erasure means you remove the need from the ask, so the other person does not have to feel anything. Many anxious people confuse the two. They think being regulated means being endlessly gentle, endlessly understanding, endlessly low maintenance, endlessly careful. But sometimes, regulation sounds like one steady sentence. I noticed the shift, and I need clarity. That is not dramatic. That is not pressure in a toxic way. That is a person staying with themselves. The reason this soothes people is because it brings the nervous system back to reality. The anxious spiral lives in maybe. Maybe they're busy. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they still care. Maybe I am too much. Maybe I should wait. Maybe I should explain more. Maybe I should pretend I am fine. A clean ask cuts through the fog. It says, I am not going to keep building theories around your inconsistency. I am going to ask once, and let the response reveal the level of safety here. And yes, that can be terrifying, because the answer may not be what you want. But endless guessing is also terrifying. It just spreads the fear over days, weeks, sometimes years. Asking once is not only a communication tool, it is a reality tool. It gives the relationship a chance to show you what it is. And for anxious attachment, reality can hurt, but fantasy slowly drains you. That is why over-explaining feels soothing in the moment, but often makes you feel worse afterward. While you are writing, you feel active. You feel like you are doing something. You feel like you are shaping the outcome. But after you send it, you feel exposed, because now the other person has a long map of your fear, and you are waiting to see if they will treat it gently. If they respond coldly, it hurts more because you gave so much. If they ignore it, it feels humiliating because you placed your whole heart in front of someone who would not even pick it up. If they respond with one dry line, the imbalance becomes painful. This is why asking once protects you. It does not make you invulnerable, but it stops you from handing someone your entire nervous system when they have not shown they can hold a simple sentence.
The clean ask is not punishment. It is not a game. It is not a tactic to make them chase. It is a way of refusing to abandon yourself while trying to connect. That is the difference. You are not asking once to appear detached. You are asking once because your truth should not need 20 layers of packaging before it is allowed to exist. A simple version might be, I felt a shift after we got closer, and I want to know where you stand. These are not cold. They are not needy. They are not aggressive. They are clean. They give the other person something real to answer.
And what happens after that answer matters more than the answer itself. Do they respond with care? Do they get defensive? Do they avoid? Do they make you feel guilty for asking? This is why the one ask is not the whole story. The one ask opens the truth. The follow-through tells you whether the truth changed anything. And that is the part anxious people must watch, because reassurance without behavior can become another drug. They may say, "Of course I care." They may say, "Nothing is wrong." They may say, "I've just been busy." They may say enough to calm you for a moment, but if the pattern stays the same, your nervous system will not believe the words for long. It will ask again, because the behavior keeps reopening the question. That is when people think, "I am too needy." But sometimes you are not too needy. Sometimes you are asking the same question repeatedly because the relationship keeps refusing to answer it through action. That is why the clean ask has to be paired with observation. You ask once, then you watch. Not obsessively, not by counting minutes, but by noticing whether the relationship becomes clearer or foggier after you spoke. Mature connection does not punish clarity. It may need a moment. It may need a conversation. It may have discomfort. But it does not make you feel insane for having a reasonable need. If a simple ask creates chaos, guilt, distance, or contempt, that tells you something about the emotional room you are standing in. The point is not to become perfectly secure overnight. The point is to stop making your anxiety do all the labor. You are allowed to want clarity without performing a full emotional trial. You are allowed to notice distance without apologizing for having perception. You are allowed to ask where you stand without writing a speech that protects someone from the discomfort of answering. The deeper truth is that asking once is not just about communication. It is about self-respect under threat. It is the moment you choose not to let fear write the whole message. It is the moment you decide that your need can be expressed without begging, defending, or disappearing. It is the moment you let the other person reveal their actual ability to meet you. And that is why it feels so dangerous to the anxious system. Because once you ask clearly, you might get clarity. And clarity can end a fantasy. But it can also end the torture of trying to decode someone who benefits from being unclear. So, the small practical piece is this. Before you ask, reduce the message to one truth and one question. One truth. I noticed a shift after we got closer. One question. Where do you stand? Do not add 5 apologies. Do not insult yourself first. Do not overprotect their comfort. Do not send a second message to soften the first one. Ask once. Kindly. Clearly. Then let the response be information. If they meet you, the relationship has something to work with. If they avoid, punish, minimize, or disappear, you did not fail at asking. You succeeded at seeing. That is the part that changes everything. The goal is not to make someone choose you through perfect wording. The goal is to stop losing yourself in the hope that the perfect wording will make an unavailable person become safe. Welcome to PsychBond. You're safe here.